Hey, Stacey David here, and this is the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals since 1919. That's right, over 100 years building tools and still going strong. If you need tools, check them out. You won't be disappointed. All right, let's get rolling. All right, I've got a question here, and this is about the value of a car going to auction. Wow. Well, we never get that question, do we, Jonathan? All right, here it goes. He says, Stacey, I've got a friend that is getting ready to sell a 64 GTO. Nice car. He said it's a true GTO, and it's got the 389 tri-power. It's automatic, black on black. And he says, here's the good part. The car was owned by the same person since 1966. So it is a two-owner car. He said it's a true survivor car. Okay, remember that word right there, survivor. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And he said it's all original, unmolested. He says, we've been told by GTO experts that the wooden steering wheel is worth $3,000. Okay, that last sentence right there, that's the kind of crap you need to be careful of right there. We were told by GTO experts that the steering wheel is worth $3,000. Okay. And that could be true, but that kind of speculation is really dangerous when you're looking to sell something. So try to avoid those wild things like that. If somebody was going to give $3,000 for a steering wheel, they are doing some sort of a Concourse restoration. His question is, the car was parked in the garage since 1980, has rear window defrost and 2 speakers on the tray. How much do you think the car is worth? Okay, now, just so you know, just like diagnosing a car problem, especially an engine problem, over the radio, this is very difficult to give you a true analysis of what this car is valued at for a couple of reasons. First of all, I haven't seen the car, so I don't know exactly what all this stuff is, but we're going to go through this and try to explain it. And then the market changes all the time. So what it's worth today could literally change tomorrow. So you have to be really careful with this. First of all, let's just go through basically the levels that are usually accepted by places like Haggerty or Mecum and these places when they're talking about cars. Okay, number one, the most pristine car is called a Concourse car. Now, a Concourse car is different than a survivor car. A survivor car is one of those cars that is untouched, original, never been restored. Now, that means the car may not be in the best shape. It's probably got some weathered paint. But there are some people that want a survivor car, and sometimes they bring stupid money, but they go to collections. You don't drive these things because they haven't been driven much to start with. For example, I ran across a guy one time that had a DeLorean that he bought brand new. It had 2 miles on it, and it was wrapped in plastic its whole life. That is a survivor car. You don't dare touch it. You don't dare fix anything on it. Its value is in the fact that nobody's touched it. As soon as you start driving it, it drops down to one of these other levels that we're going to talk about. Now, obviously, the demand for a survivor car is very, very small. It's generally a collector. And telling the value of a survivor car is really what people are willing to pay for it. It's really hard to put a value on those. So most of your places don't. A survivor car will generally fall into number 2 or 3, which is either excellent or good condition. Okay, so we'll get to those here in a second. I just wanted to clear that up about a survivor car. Now let's go to number 1, a Concourse car. Now what a Concourse car is basically a perfect original restoration. In other words, this is basically somebody that has taken a Hemi Cuda and completely restored it like it rolled off the showroom floor. That's what Concourse means. It means that it is originally perfect. All the marks are there, and if it's a number 1, it's the best of the best. obviously, you don't really drive a Concourse car very much. It's usually trailered to shows because as soon as you start to drive it and it starts to deteriorate, the level starts dropping. But a Concourse car is always an original style restoration, or could be a bit of an original Survivor plus some restoration work on it. Usually your top dollar. So on a car like this GTO, Hagerty is putting these at about 80 grand for that particular car, if it's a Concourse car, which I'm sure it's not. Okay, so the next step down is excellent. Now, excellent sounds pretty darn good, doesn't it? So that gives you an idea how far beyond, excellent a Concourse car is. Okay, excellent is your average show car. Now, this is what a guy goes out, he drives to, the Cars and Coffee, or he goes to the local show and he wins. So this is a car that's not driven very much, possibly trailered sometimes. Guy takes care of it. It is in excellent shape. And it could have some modern stuff on it. It's not completely all original, but everything is done well. You could start to be getting into some of your resto mods here. That's about $58,000. So that's almost $25,000 less than what they're saying a Concours is worth. Okay? The next step down is good condition. This is a nice driver. This is a good car. It shows well. This is a nice car. People walk up to it, and most people would say that's an awesome car. It's just not going to win at your local car shows. It's going to get second or third place, if that's what you're into. But it's something that you can drive and enjoy. And Hagerty's putting the value of this thing at about $30,000. So you see how much it's dropped. It's dropped 50 grand from a Concours car. And the next step down is number 4. That is fair condition. This is like a patina driver. You could have some glass that's starting to delaminate. You got some weather stripping that needs to be replaced. But it's still drivable. It's still a good car. Might have some leaks here and there. It's like a lot of the cars we grew up driving. They put the value about 20 grand on a car like that. And these are the cars, honestly, that you find at most of these auction houses. Is a fair condition, fair to good. And then when they start stepping up into excellent, you see a real price difference. Then, of course, number 5 is a project car. And the value of that's about 8 to 10 grand. This is a car that needs to be put together, needs interior, needs restoration. It's a project. And then, of course, the final step down, number 6, is just a parts car. And this is a car that's just got rusted floors and this, and all you're selling is parts off of it. And the value of that's somewhere between 2 and 5 grand. So you can see how these kind of lay out. Now, if you guys are sitting there listening to this, one thing that you have to understand when it comes to the auction world, all of these prices are subject to change. The only reason these values are even in existence is because more than 2 people want that vehicle. And the more those 2 people want that vehicle, the more that price changes. And if you don't think that price is driven by demand, then you haven't been around the auction game very much. For example, let me ask you this. Why is it that Mopars are so hot right now and bringing top dollar? Because 10 years ago, they weren't worth jack. Everybody wanted Camaros. And the reason that the Mopars are worth so much right now is that everybody wants one. And the people with money, they go to the auctions and they see the Mopars bringing big money, so they go try and find one. And they spend big money on it because they realize they're going to get big money, and it drives the price up. And all it's going to take, and it will happen, is for people to go, nah, I got enough Mopars. I'm after an AMC Javelin now. And that whole market will change. And all of a sudden, Mopars aren't going to bring the kind of money they did. I have seen this happen over and over and over. I've seen these markets completely drop, and then they revive and they move around. For those of you that are listening to this, that have been around this auction world, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you that haven't, you might be thinking, well, man, that kind of sounds like gambling. That kind of sounds like Vegas. Boom, you hit it right on the head. That's exactly what it is. And there are a lot of people that play that auction game that have a lot of money to play the game. But you have to realize, as a car person, what you're up against. You have to realize the way that game is being played so you don't get caught as a victim in one of these games. You know, when gearheads get together, it isn't long until the subject of tools comes up. Because tools are what make all this possible. You guys know that. And car guys and girls are passionate about tools. What's good and what is bad. And that is one thing that I have to give Cornwell a lot of credit for. They'll listen to what the pros are saying about their tools and constantly make changes to build them better. That's why they have new screwdriver handles and ratchets and all kinds of other stuff coming out all the time. It's not just to get your money, which a lot of people think. It's the never-ending quest to build a better tool. Because Cornwell knows that if you're not working and getting paid, they're not getting paid. That's why they're America's oldest tool company and still going strong. Check them out. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. Let me tell you some of the stuff that I've actually seen happen. I have seen guys with big collections, and a lot of times it's auction houses and things like this. They can manipulate the market because they have a lot of influence and a lot of money behind them. Example, if they went in and they were like, you know something, now let's say all the Mopars are hot and that market is taxed out. It's at the top of where it's going to go, and the cars are just kind of sitting at their top. But you know what hasn't gone up are old Jeep pickups or old, AMC this, or maybe the Panteras. So what they'll do is that they'll go out and they'll invest in those quietly, and they'll get a bunch of them, and then they'll wait till one comes to an auction. And then they, with their big reputation, will step in and bid big money for it. Well, everybody else will see that happen, and they'll go, well, that's so-and-so. They just bid a lot of money on that. They must know something we don't. And so immediately it starts to happen, and all of a sudden, that particular car or make becomes very hot. And they have actually manipulated that market to make that happen. And now they've got a bunch sitting in their collection, and they reap the benefits of that. And don't think for a second that that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So you have to realize that you're a part of a much bigger game that other people are playing. And sometimes it's a lot of people that have a lot more money than you do. Because I sat down with a person years ago, and when I was explained how this works, I have to say, I was kind of ticked off about it. Because, I'm a car guy. I love the cars. And I either want to drive the cars or I want to see people get the cars and enjoy them. And so this whole thing of people using these as investments and, playing this game to just make money off them was kind of foreign to me. But you have to understand that's just part of it. But also keep in mind, when you put something for sale, a lot of times one of these auction houses will contact you. And they're kind of like American Pickers. In that they'll come in and they'll go, hey, I got to make a little money here. I got to have a little bit of meat on the bone. All those cliches that they'll use. And basically they're saying, I want to make money off of you. So I want you to sell me your car cheaper than what it's worth. Just because I'm here with a check in front of you, then I'll take it. I'll take it to the auction and I'll make the true profit on it. And listen, if that's what you choose to do, that's fine. You just need to understand that's part of the game. So all of that to say, basically, I'm looking at this GTO, trying to give the guy a value on it. When I'm looking at the description, and this is another point here, when he said it's all original and it's unmolested, I don't know what that means until I look at it. In other words, are the tires flat? Is it completely untouched? Or has it been taken care of? Unmolested, what does that mean? Were things not fixed when they were bad? Or has people just not modify it? See, there's a lot of things here that could be happening. So be careful when you start to look at these values. If you'll notice, every time a car goes through an auction, all these auction places release what they sold for. They do that so you will sit there and go, wow, did you see what that Chevelle sold for? Grandpa had one of those, man. I think you still got it. And if that one was for $100,000, I bet Grandpa's was worth 80. That's the way you think, and it's not accurate. But that's what happens. And the reason they put that out, the auction houses want you to think that. Because when they put out the value, that's their way of showing you, hey, this is what's hot. Keep in mind, there's more going on here than just cool cars coming across the auction block. There's a lot of people playing a real long game on some of these collections and some of this stuff. And you just need to be aware of that, and then just try to keep a reasonable idea on the value of your vehicle. And the one thing that I always try to remind people, this never changes. Your car is worth what somebody's willing to spend for it. And when it comes to an auction, it's not just one person. You need two of them. If one guy wants to give you $100,000 for your car, but nobody else is going to give more than 20, then the guy that's willing to give $100,000 is going to get it for 21. But if you have two people that are willing to give $100,000, somebody is going to give $101,000 to get that car. And that's where you win. So I hope this kind of helps and explains this. Obviously, we get this question a lot. Keep going through it. It can be really fun, but you got to understand the game. Good luck to you. You know, one of the cool things that we have going on the show this season is that I am building 3 motorized toolboxes for Cornwell Tools. And yeah, you heard me right, motorized toolboxes. Now, you might be thinking, what in the world? Why would you do that? That is exactly why you would do it, is because that's what you would do. Now, there's a whole story about how this came about. I was talking with Don Russell there at Cornwell a year or so ago, and he was talking to me about the new Platinum toolboxes and showing me the incredible framework on them and the fact that they build them strong enough that you can actually build an engine or something on top of them. And I was looking at it, and I said, you know, you got a strong enough frame there, you could literally build a car out of these. And he was like, well, why don't you? And I'm like, well, I just might. And he's like, well, I dare you. And I'm like, well, I double dog dare you. So basically, that's how it started. And I was like, you know, I'm serious. And he goes, well, I am too. So we came up with this idea. What I wanted to do is focus on how we all get started as car people. Now, you guys are going to love this. You're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. We all start the same way. You know, once we get through our Hot Wheels stage and our building model stage, our first mechanical project is either a lawnmower or a go-kart or a motorcycle or a scooter or something like a snowmobile, mini bike, something like that. That's where we all start. And we start tearing it apart and dinking with it and doing stuff to it. And that's where we start to learn to be a car person. Most of the time we learn what not to do at that point, but those are really valuable lessons. We never forget that stuff, and we always still love it. You know, there's people everywhere that are putting engines on, you know, shopping carts and skateboards and all that kind of crazy stuff. That's where we started. So I was like, you know, I want to celebrate that, and I want to encourage people to do that because it's cheap, it's easy, and it's fun. And it keeps the hot rod spirit alive in you. So I was like, okay, we're going to build 3 toolboxes, and each one is going to be still a functional toolbox. It has to move under its own power, and I'm going to use all propulsion systems from these early things. It either has to be a snowmobile or a motorcycle or a go-kart or a lawnmower or something like that. So that's what we're doing. I won't give too much of it away, but I will tell you, one is powered by a Dixie chopper lawnmower. So it uses a hydrostatic drive, which is a great thing. A lot of people don't understand how that works. And so it's kind of mind-boggling the way I'm putting that one together. The second one is powered by a 1,000cc Honda motorcycle engine that had been put onto a little pulling tractor. So it's going to be insane. Each one needed to be a little wilder as they went. And so the third one is going to be air-powered, like an airboat, with a big propeller being driven by a 440 snowmobile engine. And this is just crazy. Every time I look at it, I just laugh. Everybody that looks at it just laughs because it's so wrong that it's so right. So anyway, I say all that to tell you guys that are out there, listen, you know, I'm always telling you on the show, get out there and work on something because it's so therapeutic for just anything. And it doesn't have to be a car. A lot of people think they got to get out and get into a car project. And unfortunately, a lot of the questions that we have on here that I have to deal with are that people that have got into something that they weren't quite prepared for. So starting with these easier projects are so much more forgiving, and there's less to do, so you can get them done quicker, and you learn, and it prepares you for those bigger projects. So if you're out there and you're not really working on anything, we just want something to tinker on, man, pick yourself up an old lawnmower or an off-road vehicle or a quad or a motorcycle or something and tweak on it. Take a motorcycle, turn it into a chopper. Take a quad and turn it into a dump truck or something. Let your imagination go. And of course you can do this based on your skill level and based on your tools. And you'll know real quick if you're not capable of doing it and you're not out a lot of money. But anyway, get out there, man. Have fun. Tweak on stuff and send them in to the What Are You Working On, because those are the things that we like to feature on the show as well. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Make sure that you check out the GearZ TV website. We got all kinds of cool stuff there. We got a couple new die casts coming out. Got some books coming out. We have all kinds of things going on. But the most important thing is get out there and turn some wrenches yourself. Get a project. If you don't have one, start working on it. And if you don't have tools, check out Cornwell. They can help you out there. Also, don't forget to check out GearZ on Gears Nation, Amazon, Mav TV, and Motor Trend. All right, we'll see you down the road.